It's Ruchika Nirvan here, and I'm director at Learn and Play. So at Learn and Play, we deal with kids with special needs, and we deal with kids using play as a mode, where kids learn naturally and they grow naturally. I feel, and this is what kids need. So, because we are running a parent training month, and today we have our very special guest, Navneet Wallabh. So, Navneet is a hypnotherapist, a clinical psychologist, and he's working in this field for a long time. And he deals with adults, and he got a lot of knowledge about how we can, counsel parents and how we can develop kids by using a parent training model for, you know, to develop kids further in a very positive and a healthy manner. So our today's topic is using, building family as a team. And for the same, we have Navneet. Let me introduce it to all of you. Hi, Navneet. How are you?
I'm excellent, all well.
Okay, so can you please tell everyone about yourself a little?
Okay. So, hi, Ruchika, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful platform again. And so, I'm really honored to be, coming into this platform once again and to share the knowledge. So, let me talk about myself. I'm basically a clinical hypnotherapist and past life regression therapist and psychologist. Apart from that, I'm into, I most of the time, even though my hardcore training is into cognitive psychology and the cognitive aspects of the human mind, but somehow over these years, over these last 10 to 15 years, my journey has been into the world of subconscious approaches of the human mind, especially the deeper recesses of the human mind, and probably that's where I come into, and probably the subconscious plays a major role, whether it is a child, whether it is adolescent, or whether it is adult, or whether we are moving towards the old age. So we are looking at that one powerful area of the mind, the subconscious mind, and that's where I come into the picture.
Yeah, it's all our pleasure that you are here with us. And today's topic is building family as a team. So,
Right.
Navneet, what do you feel? What is the role of family, in building a kids, in developing a kids in a very positive and a healthy manner?
Okay. So I guess this is a very powerful topic, which you have introduced right now, and I guess this is something which is needed for every person on this planet Earth, obviously, because every person who is living on this planet Earth cannot be living in an island. Everybody is a part of a social group or a social, a group or a culture, and we all belong to something called family. And I think is let me first define the family as a word, as a concept, before we get into this answer. Family, if you look at it, is a group of individuals or probably a parents and children, cohabiting and living together. And whereas we were talking about a team, obviously how they can coexist together. So team, on the other hand, if you look at it, is a concept where there are a group of individuals who are working towards a common goal. And probably these teams are having us, the amount of skills, the synergy, what they have is different for different persons, but when they come together, the team becomes successful. So when you're looking at a family as a team, you are actually bringing these two concepts together.
Yeah.
One on the family, which is like through blood or through blood relationship, or through whom you deeply connect at a very soul level, staying under one roof, and also bringing the element of team into the picture, which means they have a mutual goal, and they are achieving a mutual goal, and they are growing together in this entire journey, whether it is a child, whether it is a parent. And that's
Yeah.
where we look at as a building
So,
as family.
Navneet, when we look at kids' development, right? When a child is really small and they are directly dependent on parents,
Right,
so we feel that yes, the family is very, we feel cohesion, right? But
right,
when kids they grow, when they come to teenage, and they suddenly have their own perspective, okay, and they look,
right,
peer pressure is there, they have quite high level of self image, and they how they want to project themselves, it really matters, small things that really matters to them. And suddenly we feel that there is a high discrepancy in there, thinking and then their parents thinking. And because parents see, now, because we all are grown up, so now I can feel why my mother used to stop me for something. But when I was at that age, I was unable to understand either. Right. So what
Absolutely.
can we do? Then taking a family as a team is
Mhm.
highly important. Right. So what can we do
So
to
first
sync
of
the
all,
lives? Hmm.
yeah, sure. So I believe first of all, many times as a parent, when we talk about this concept, they come from the premise that we want to force the child to do certain kind of acts, right?
Right.
So forcing the child to do a certain act means you're actually restricting the child to grow into the fullest, awareness or the ultimate purpose, or the skill that he is born on this planet Earth. We are actually trying to stop it at some level of awareness, because as a parent there's a lot of expectations that the child should be like this, and they are thinking the child is like a clay.
Yeah.
And and when as a parent they try to make this clay into a pot or into something else, or some designs or something like that, but in that process we often forget the child is not the clay. There is a concept that child is at a, Piaget and Jean Piaget, one of the renowned psychologists, they did experiment and they said that you give me a kid, I can make
Yeah.
them a doctor, I can
Yeah.
make them a police
So
or a
as per them,
physicist.
kids are like blank state, and whatever we want, we can make them.
Absolutely.
I don't know exactly how true is it, because kids ultimately they have their own thinking and imaginations,
Correct.
and there is always a want. And when we put so much of expectation, then there is going to be definitely a high level of discrepancy.
Correct. And
Yeah.
that's what parents often forget.
Yeah, but I think, see, uh, parents, they know that what are going to be the consequences of their action, of the kids' actions, basically. But kids at that stage, they are unable to think, okay, I am doing this because see, their impulse control at that time is not very established.
Correct.
And they feel like, okay, I can do it. And nowadays, that relationships are forming at a very early age, and
Absolutely.
there is a high level of privacy they want, and the high level of gaming and phone, and these
Correct.
things kids are getting very connected to. So parents always instructing them, or always behind them. What do you think, what parents should be? Because as per when I talk about from the parents perspective, they will also feel very helpless, that they know where their child is going, but child is not understanding. So what they should do, definitely they feel like, okay, I should lock them in a room, or I should give them a slap. So this is definitely going to make him more aggressive, the kids will get more
Correct.
aggressive. But what do you think, what can be the alternative of this thing?
See, there is a difference between, dictatorship and authoritarian parent.
Yeah.
One can be an authoritarian parent, but one should not become a dictator. What child perceives is the parent is a dictator. If the child perceives the parent as an authoritative parent, which means the parent is like a team leader. In a company, if you look at it, there's a team leader, right? And there is a manager who is assigning jobs, and probably based on their skills and talents, which means there is a mutual goal. Now,
Yeah.
what happens is, like every generation, the child who is born in a certain generation will say that, my parents are from a different generation, I'm from a different generation. So this generation gap mindset is already fixated in the child's mind, that my parents will not understand. Maybe they are coming from the previous generation, so they won't be able to understand what is the current scenarios and all. And that's a complaint which is going from ages. So if we go to our parents or our grandparents, they will also find a similar kind of struggles, even if they don't accept at this point of time, considering the ego issues or whatever.
Mhm.
But that's the same story which is there. But every generation has a certain challenge.
Yeah.
Means the previous challenges were different, and the challenges of the now is different, which means we are all evolving and we are all equipped, which means as a generation right now, as a parent, we will be equipped to deal with the child of this now. Maybe a 3 4 generations back parents, they will not be able to deal with the new child at this point of time, because the level of consciousness is rising. I won't say it is deteriorating.
Yeah. So what a parent should do to
Who is
avoid?
born and using Zoom call? No, I believe that the parents who at this child at this point of time who is using a laptop, who's using an iPad at this point of time, the intellect level is different. Not, I'm not talking about the previous generations or our generations or at that point of time. I'm talking about the child who's born at this point of time, who's exposed to all these technologies and intellectual awareness, which means the way to treat the child will be different.
Yeah, right.
There was a time when the teachers used to hit the child and hurt the child, and and we belong to that generation, and probably we have seen and we have
Yeah. And
witnessed.
there was immediate self-correction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, basically fear was the key at that time.
And probably that's where how things used to work. Just like in an organizational structure where there used to be an authoritative model, and probably that over the years we changed to the humanitarian approach. The human resource came into existence. Similarly, I'm just trying to correlate with the organizational principles with the family principles, because family is not different. Just like the organizational criteria, if you're looking at the similar is a family structure.
So you want to say that the parents should use different kind of language with kids and they should
Absolutely.
not be very instructive and directive.
Correct.
Yeah, right. So one more thing, what about the relationship status? How they are going to deal a 10-year-old in a relationship or a 12-year-old in a relationship?
See, it's a very difficult for parents of that generation because they never been into that stage. And even if they were into that stage, let us assume that at the age of 13 or so, or a 14-year-old, at that point of time, they've fallen in love or an infatuation or they had an affair or whatever. But at that point of time, when they were caught, how did their parents react was very harsh.
Mhm.
So that's a known memory for them. Now, that's a programming for them that if a child violates a certain principles, which means the child needs to be punished. Now, this programming is making them to think that the child will end up into hurting oneself,
Mm.
rather than understanding the child is emotionally developing at this stage. The emotional development is far more ahead at this point of time. So the knowledge what the child has to be given at this stage, like maybe at the age of 20s and 30s, what the parents used to give at that point of time should be coming at the age of 10 and 12 and 15. So that wisdom and that understanding the parents needs to have. They need not to treat them as like somebody who is controlled by them, but
Yeah,
rather at least an equal level where they are, investing in them and they're believing that they are actually growing to their fullest self.
yeah, right. And what do you think? Present generation, when we talk about their parenting style is really different than the previous ones, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so there is always a now acknowledging emotion is the most important thing I feel for kids. When you acknowledge them and then you start with something else, they know that this person is understanding me. And
Absolutely.
this is what I tell, to majorly all the parents that you should acknowledge the kids' emotion before giving them the alternates. So,
Absolutely.
uh, why do you think kids, not all like see we can't generalize that all the parents should do this, all the parents should do that. There is no manual for it, right? So because kids, their behaviors and their challenges are different, so parents and their responses and reactions will be different too. But some of the kids are getting into self-harm behavior also because they
Correct.
feel so overwhelmed, especially in this COVID lockdown. I have got 3 4 cases like that where kids are not kid but adults are getting into the self-harming nature and they feel so you know suffocated in that environment and
Correct.
they don't know what to do. So getting into this thing, what do you think can be a better suggestion?
See, self harm is something coming from the belief system that I'm not good enough, or something in me is I'm not able to control the situation, or I feel helpless in the situation. And that helplessness is something which is making the person to create an abnormal behavior or a maladaptive behavior. So, if this helplessness is addressed in a correct way, where the person feels the resources around, the person will never ever get into an abnormal behavior. Most of these abnormal behaviors, or the when you look at the clinical symptoms of uh, any of these self-hurting behaviors, what people project is coming from this belief system that I don't have enough support system. I don't have the right support system. I feel not heard by other people. I feel unheard by those loved ones around me. Or my visions of life or my goals of life, I don't have the enough resources or the potential to implement it.
Yeah.
So if you are able to make them available or make them know that they are enough to handle most of the situations of life, they have everything within themselves to tackle the harsh times or hard times what they're going through, then they will not resort to all these maladaptive behaviors. They will have an effective coping mechanisms, and probably those irrational thinking patterns might change to a great extent.
Yeah, right. Right, Navneet. I agree. So one more thing is when we talk about early childhood issues, we
Right.
basically whenever a case will come to you or to any psychologist, we usually go back to the early childhood level.
Correct.
We always start with that, right? So because that is the basis of our personality, right?
Correct.
So why? What do you think that you know early childhood should be like? Definitely non-directive, non-instructional, I agree. But
Right.
if parents usually find it very conflicting that if I'll not give them instruction, how will they learn? you know, like cleaning up their own things or making their own cupboard, beds. So
Correct.
yeah. So how will they manage it, balance it?
Okay. See, what happens is every parent who coaches the child or basically mentors a child, they don't mentor it in a correct way. What they do is you become a doctor, you become an engineer, you become a they're giving instructions directly instead of telling or nurturing the skills what the child is needed. At a very young age, the child is asked, what do you want to become?
Yeah.
So, which means the child is programmed. Yes, I have to clear my 10th with higher marks, 12th with higher marks. I have to study for medicine. I have to study for engineering. The child is always preparing these thoughts in the mind and coming to the conclusion that I'm not good enough. So even if the child will not pass in the exam, the parents will force to go for push him to a tuition or something like that and think that you have to go for medicine, you have to go for engineering because without this, you have no future. Now, let me tell you a fact. If the child is put into a different field where the potential is, and the parents do the same kind of investment, not even big, not even small. I'm not saying that they have to go. I'm talking about there are uncertain professions. I agree. Like for instance, people, where there is a huge amount of money investment. I'm not talking about that, but I'm saying the amount of investment, the time, money, and all those kind of things what they're doing already, if they are trying to project or help them into the field what they can sustain. Because at the end of the day, many times we realize that the professions or the trainings that we got at the earlier years, many times they are obsolete completely. We have an on job training, and which is why most of the people who actually grow in professional lives have the on job trainings at that point of time, which means what we have learned is something which is very obsolete. What we need to learn is probably coaching them or coaching the children in the right way, that okay, what are the skills there? If the child is good in mathematics, then only you are trying to project the child or push the child into that professions. If the child is not good at it, you try to force the child, that the child might just barely pass the exam, but in that profession the child will not outshine.
Yeah. Right. So
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 that's where I believe that.
what early so early age kids, like when we play with them, when we give them a very natural environment to grow,
Right.
this will help kids in forming a positive personality.
Definitely yes, because obviously, see, you can't protect the child all the time. They need to be exposed with difficult emotions. It's not that you should not help the child when the child is bullied by people or
Yeah.
the situations and circumstances, but the child should be aware to face the world, because in the absence of the parents, tomorrow the child should be equipped enough to deal with all kinds of people, all kinds of circumstances, which means you are actually trying to take the child initiatives.
True.
Even if he's failing or even is winning, that's a different story, because most of the time we tell the child to win. But we never teach the child, if we lose the battle, what he should do and how to, integrate oneself back to win back in again. We are not teaching the child those skills. We are only telling the child, okay, you have to win. And if he fails, we sometimes, our own frustrations, our own failures, we try to project on the child.
Yeah,
And that's what we need to refrain from.
right. So every parent want their kid should, you know, win and be the topper and all. But I feel kids, they are very smart. They know that what is expected out of them or what they are doing, and then they start doing this self analysis. Then they start judging themselves, and the entire personality goes, haywire, I'll say. They feel like, okay, this is something wrong, and they become defensive at times. They become very conscious of their own self. They become confused with the self image,
Correct.
right? Once basically we talk about the discrepancy part, but once they want to achieve, and one, they are actually are, you
Correct.
know and another thing is, words are the keys, right? So
Correct.
positive words will help kids to develop positively. But then
Correct.
again, I feel if we'll not tell our kids, like when I talk to kids when we deal with autism, so because you know, we have to tell them that this will happen, that will happen. So we keep narrating them so that they won't feel anxious. So because
Absolutely.
they are scared, they become afraid of these new things and variations. So what about the kids who are very small? We, of course, we have to tell them that this is what is going to happen. We'll go in a birthday party. This will happen. We'll say this. We'll say that. You know. So what do you think? How can we differentiate this? Instruction all the time, instructing a parent to a parent who is, who is telling a child that this is the crucial thing, you have to do this, you have to perform. This is also a kind of instruction, right? Like, are
See,
you getting
many
it what I'm saying?
times, many times as a parent, there are moments where you are strictly giving instructions and guidelines. How many of us on the roads, they say, okay, now this is you have to follow certain things. There are so many boards in the, if you travel on road, there
Yeah.
are so many boards and slogans and this thing. How many of us actually pay attention to that? We rarely actually do that, and we rarely actually try to inculcate it. So similarly, the child also feels that he's driving on the journey of life, and so many instructions are coming. And unless and until it is catchy enough, and unless and until he knows that, like for instance, there's a red light which is there, the car he has to stop. I mean, as an adult, we have to stop the car. So similarly, where the instructions are very clear and why he needs to do it, that awareness is missing. Because many times when a parent gives an instruction, the child is not aware why it is being given. It is when the parent says no, there is no reason which is given to no. When
Yeah.
the parents wants to make the child work hard for certain things, the child doesn't know the what is the achievement of it. If I win, what is the achievement? If I fail, what is that which I'm going to go through? If
Yeah.
the child is not aware of it, because I guess, uh, the more awareness plays the role. And I guess as a parent, awareness is not happening in the first place, and that is one of the reasons parents not able to achieve the targets.
So you are saying that we parents should start saying it in a manner so that it not become very, overwhelming for them.
Absolutely true.
Yeah. Okay. And so what do you think, when kids, they reach at a level where they can do their own chores and they can manage their own stuff, then taking family together, suppose if a family got a girl, and a son. So taking them as a team, because again, a guy's brain and a girl's brain is always going to be different, and their priorities are always going to be different, and their emotions, of course, they're very different, and how they react, project. So parents' role in taking all the kids and, entire thing, and ma- engaging in weekend, suppose, and having a happy weekend. So what do you think, what they can do, what kind of exercises they can do?
See, every family culture has a different way of nurturing the child. Like for instance, on weekends, some families take them to malls, or some people to go for movies. There's a culture that is formed, just a weekend culture that we just created. Some people,
Yeah.
call for friends, and or they go to their friends' houses. So, and that is something which is created over these years, and that becomes our part of our persona. So when you grow up and you realize that, okay, I want to do the same things. Like for instance, in a childhood, if I used to go if I used to go out at that point of time. So probably that is a similar kind of culture I might develop years later. Maybe I will go for a movie, I'll meet people outside during weekends. So probably this is what the parents are inculcating. Now, these fun activities should not be just limited to fun activities, but should be a learning experience. Now, this learning experience is actually the bonding experience.
Yeah.
How well are we going to connect with each other? If that bonding is established, like
Hmm.
for instance, if even if we have there's an outing which is happening, and everybody decides to go to Pizza Hut or a barbecue nation or any places of all those good places. Now, it's not about the food experience, it's beyond the food experience. It's about coming together, having a chat, a lot of things. Those memories needs to be remain forever. If we are see what are the kind of conversations that we have, it's all about communication. And here the major role comes at how well we are communicating, how well we are talking. Because those talkings or those moments of discussions is what is going to stay with us a lifetime, even in the absence of parents. Let's say the parents departed, and now the child is grown up, is adult, but the memories what the child has shared with the parents is going to remain with the child, and that is going to remain for a longer period of time. And that's what I strongly believe.
Yeah, I believe the same too. They have very strong impact on us, and this is what we reflect in our, coming generation as well. So, like you said, we have a different culture now, and if we talk about nowadays generation, so making a family as a team, basically, see, what I can relate is there was a norm that everyone should eat together at my place. ओके सो नो वन एक अपने कमरे में नहीं खाएगा, दूसरा अपने कमरे में नहीं खाएगा, सब बैठ के साथ में खाएंगे. This was one thing that was very consistent in my family. And like whenever there is a festival kind of a thing, you know then at early age may, if you have seen, parents used to say, narrate kids that sisters, siblings, are you are going to be there for each other always. And kids, they always somehow they it's brain wired, and it's a kind of course, relationship also. I'll say that you know siblings, they have a different relationship. But we always feel, even though I don't talk to my brother for a long time, but whenever he is around, I feel if he is in trouble, I can do anything for him. And if my sister is in trouble, I can do anything for him. So so this is what I feel, that yes, parenting and forming this family like a team, like I can really feel it. But what do you think, kids who are 11, 12, or maximum, if two siblings got a hardly 2 years of age gap or 5 years of age gap, taking them, engaging in them, in them, in something, in some activities which can actually create a positive impact, which will create a positive self image also. And that internally they feel like, yes, I my family is like, something is nice going on at that stage where their ideology is completely different. है ना? So you are understanding what I'm trying to say, कि उस वक्त हम ऐसे क्या चीजों में उन्हें engage करें जिससे उनको लगे कि okay, this is my family and this is what they want good for me. And you know
The point here is, when there are siblings in the family, there is always a chance of rivalry and jealousy, which is a natural part of the entire story. And generally, when this jealousy happens or a rivalry happens, the parents actually becomes like there is a wrestling match, and there is a somebody who is a referee who is standing with between. So that's what the parents do.
yeah.
So both the kids are fighting with each other. The parents become the referee, and they, sometimes they try to support the person who has not fought. Sometimes the person who fought gets encouraged. So all these incidences the child registers in the back of the mind and forms a certain opinions of not the parents but the people around. Like for instance, if the person feels that my younger brother or sister or something like that, they created a mess and they created a problem, and they are not scolded, instead I got scolded. So I would start thinking the world to be very unsafe. If I even if I am right, the world is going to crucify me, going to hurt me. So these belief systems gets formed. So which means as a parent, it's a very powerful role that you're playing at that point of time, because the concept of justice, the concept of equality, the concept of loving and sharing is what is need to be inculcated. Because if the sharing part is not inculcated at a very young age, even if the other child is hurt that, oh, I don't want to share a toy or I don't want to do this or that, but even if it is forced at a very young age and made that child learn that this is a part of the culture.
Yeah.
Because what is a cultural learning? Because many times the cultural belief systems stays with us for a longer period of time. It's
Very.
very rarely people change religions.
Yeah.
You have seen, like or some major crisis happens, and that makes the person decides to change the identity. So cultures plays a major role, and probably those generations belief systems remains with us primarily because we are operating out of these belief systems. So I believe that this is a stage where we are nurturing those belief systems, and probably this stage where no matter what, how tiring the exercise seems to be, but we need to inculcate sharing habits. So even if, let's say, one pizza is brought to the for the child. So
Mhm.
let's say there are two kids in the family, and make sure that you are not giving the bigger slice to the smaller child. Make sure there is an equal slice is given. Otherwise the bigger child starts thinking, older child starts thinking, yes, I have to give it to the small. Now in that process the person's sacrificing nature goes up,
Yeah.
and
Right.
later stage the child starts hurting himself or herself, that I have to
Mhm.
sacrifice a lot for everything. Now that belief system comes up. Now let's say for the reversely, if you look at the smaller child, now the smaller child feels pampered. Now,
Yeah.
now he or she will say, oh, I want everything. Now in that process, when the child grows up, the world outside is not like that. So when
Yeah.
he or she doesn't get what he or she needs, then the pain story begins.
Right. So दोनों को equal, you know, treat करना जरूरी है, otherwise definitely दोनों की discrepancy बहुत बढ़ेगी.
Correct.
Right.
That's very true.
That's a very right point. You know, I have seen live examples around me. Oh, like I really feel that, you know, every time you can't just tell a parent no, do this or do that.
Correct.
And anyways, so yeah, so yeah, that's a very nice and fruitful discussion, Navneet. But I'm I still have some more questions.
Sure. Go for
So
it.
okay, if we talk about siblings and sibling rivalry, okay,
Right.
so definitely it will affect when the kids they grow, when they become an
Correct.
adult and further. First thing is there are chances that they will project the same, you know, whatever they have got in the early childhood or the middle childhood, they will
Mhm.
reflect the same in the future. And another thing is you know, the entire family environment will go, you know, very negative
Correct.
and they grow old, or when we talk about sibling bonds.
Correct. Correct. See, at the end of the day, as years passes by, certain feelings changes within a human being. So, which means the rivals at the earliest age can become the best friends, and the friends at the earliest age can become the biggest rivals.
True.
So, similarly in blood relationships, like when you talk about uh, brother or sister, or people who are very very close and very very attached to one another, these people, the chances of getting hurt is very faster. Chances of getting humiliated, getting emotionally vulnerable becomes at a very faster pace. So, which means there is no fixed criteria. Like for instance, if childhood, the brother and sister were had a great bonding, that doesn't mean that it is going to last for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
It means it needs to be nurtured. As years passes by, roles and responsibility changes. As
Yeah.
years passes by, things starts moving on a different track. And as years passes by, you realize that um, the aspirations are different, the goals are different, the visions are different. But even in their differences, if they are able to find that similarity, even if their differences, they find that something common, that means they have created or cultivated a meaningful chapter.
Yeah.
That
Right.
chapter will last for a lifetime.
Yeah. Right. So, what are the five or three activities you will suggest parents to do to make, to build a family like a team?
Okay. I would say that every, when you talk about parenting culture or when you talk about parenting as a concept, every family dynamic is different. And every family dynamic is different means like if you look at one of the very renowned psychologists, Virginia Stair, if you look at her concept of family understanding to it, and what the family therapy as a concept comes up into the picture is uh, families are different, and probably some are from a different socio-cultural group, socio-economic group, socio-educational groups, and probably the need at different places will be different. For some people, they might be struggling with finances. For some people, it could be emotional connectivity. I mean, mix of everything will be there, but what is predominant?
Yeah.
And based on that, they need to take care of. Like, for instance, if the child where there is a time is missing, like for instance, both the parents are working. Now, it is not an excuse to say that compromising the time or saying that, oh, we don't have the time is not an excuse.
Yeah.
It's not about a quantity of time, it's about a quality of time. Spend 10 minutes, that's it. Throughout the day, you're meeting hardly 10 minutes, fine. But that's 10 minutes should be very deep, very, where you find that connectivity with the child and you are able to establish the connectivity with the child. And
True.
even the child also doesn't want, the child doesn't want it, the parents need to sit 24/7 and infringing
Yeah.
their privacy.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of attitude that the parents needs to develop. And like for instance, if there is a family, there's a financial struggle. Now let's say that's a different dynamic. Now here, the parents want to give the best to the child, and what they do is like they send to the child the best of the best schools. Now what happens to this child? The child feels insecure in the school
Yeah.
because he's not able to, or she is not able to establish the connectivity to other so-called rich children, and the child develops the complexes.
True.
Or sometimes the child starts to do buttering the other kids of the same age just to uh, get some respect, get some care, and all those kind of things.
Hmm.
So it is not that the parents from a little lesser socioeconomic background should not make efforts or something. They should do it, but they should also make the child understand what is the child's identity. The child's identity is not restricted to money. There could be different other things. Now the money the child can earn at a different stage. The parents did their best to achieve at least this level.
Yeah.
Now this is the legacy what the child has to take it up forward, which means they are not superior. They have become superior in that particular area, and this family has become excellent in some other area. Now
Yeah.
this understanding, if the child doesn't have it, the child will have frequent complaints in the school.
Hmm.
Every day this fight happened, that fight happened.
Yeah. So again, yeah, these are very nice points you have shared. Like, definitely time and money are the biggest factors, in
Correct.
they're raising kids. And I am, because in flow time we always say that spend at least 20 minutes but play with your child.
Correct.
That's really important. That's how they keep, they make memories, and
Correct.
it gives them security. But see, if I talk about, like, I want to spend quality time with my family, and what should I do that is not directive instructional but enjoying and motivating for my kids? Like, suppose uh, cooking together. Like, suppose if I want to bake a cake, so I can give, you know, some tasks to my kids and to my husband, and together we can form it, and which can give them, a different kind of first they are constructing, and then it's a different kind of self perspective they are getting. Okay, that they have done something. So these kind of any activities like that, can you
See,
suggest?
at a very young age, if you look at, I'm not talking about the previous generation, I'm talking about the current generations. In the current generations, I believe that boy and the girl are very at the equal platforms to it. Especially the boys needs to learn cooking.
Yeah.
And if they don't learn it, they will they will have big problems at the later stage. So at a very young age, the mothers needs to actually train the kids. Not like they have to do it for themselves. But tomorrow, if some crisis happens, they don't have to depend on hotels and restaurants.
Yeah.
And like by default, if the child has not gone to, even let's assume that the child is not living independently or something, but if the world is unpredictable, so
Yeah.
I believe that it's a life skill. See, beyond education, there are certain life skills the child needs to learn. If those life skills are missing, the child will suffer or child will find it difficulty at a later stage. Cooking is one life skill. I'm not saying that this is the only life skill. There are several life skills. Now life skills could be related to like how well helping others. Now helping others is a very very big term. But if you tell the child you help somebody, the child will not help. Like for instance, in crisis, it tell the child to do a helping hand. Now even the adulthood, it becomes very difficult to help somebody.
Hmm.
We think that we don't have the time, we think we don't have the money,
So
we
being
think
a
there are
right
so many
model.
things.
Hmm. So being a right model for the child, like, suppose parents can plan, you know, like they can take some fruits and they can just give
Absolutely.
it to other, kids.
Absolutely, kids are the
Yeah.
people. Or like for instance, now during the winters time, they can take the child outside and give give a blanket
Blankets.
to. So these are the some activities where the and tell the child to give it.
Yeah.
Don't do it yourself. Tell
Or
the child to give
giving
that.
their old clothes, their old warm clothes
Absolutely.
to people
The
who
child who
need.
needs or people who need it.
Yeah. So uh, yeah, yeah. So this will create a very experiential thing in
Correct.
them. They want to help, and they can actually see that yes, they are needy,
Correct.
right?
No,
And
what I've
like you said,
observed is
cooking.
over the years, like there are many children who don't respect people. I mean, respect older people, or respect their own grandparents, or their the
Yeah,
younger kids.
but not everyone around.
Not everyone, I mean to say, but there are certain kids. Now, these kids were not mentored correctly by the parents. If you tell the child, no, you respect that person, the child will not do it. You have to show that in these activities.
Yeah, right, right. So again, you have cooking, we have this helping model strategy. What else do you think, that parents can form a cohesion, taking all the kids together and doing something together?
Correct. That's a very powerful exercise, and probably that's where the role of psychologist comes into the picture.
Yeah.
And I guess
Like
you are
like
doing
I
that
feel
now.
whenever there is a birthday party, and parents can always give a small task to other kids, to their kids and to the husband, and they can together again form something, and you know
Absolutely.
and
I guess
kids
these
feel
festivals
important.
become a great opportunity. Yeah, I believe that we, as in India, we have so many festivals. Within a
Yeah.
month, if you look at it, there are so many festivals which are there. And if each of us start assigning the family members the kind of roles, especially the parents assign to their children, they not only understand the value of that festival, they'll not only understand the reason why they're celebrating the festival,
Yeah.
but they also develop some skills within their space and probably the good qualities that they actually need to become a good human being.
Right. And what about playing games with the kids at night? Like Tambola or Ludo
Mhm.
or Snake and Ladders or other games, like when I was raised, At a young age, I used to see a lot of carom boards around, and
Correct, correct.
people
I
used to
remember.
engage in those board games.
I guess we are all gone through that stage.
Yeah, but
Right.
now I see that kids are happy playing games on phone. But I
Mm.
think parents, if they'll encourage, you know, that they should play it together, be it carom board or be it snake and ladder or be it any other fun game. So I think this also brings a good family time together.
See, I believe that that is definitely needed, but we have to go with the techno kid. The technology kid wants the parent to become a technocrat
Yeah,
to
but
play in the video.
why we are losing the essence of play? See, nowadays we are facing a lot of language and communication difficulties in kids
Correct.
because there is always a one-way approach going on. So there is
Absolutely.
no harm in using phone and iPads. But
Correct.
if we see, it's only one-way communication.
Correct.
Only
Correct.
I am doing it. Only another voice is speaking to me. But emotions, responses, perspectives, language, expansions.
Correct.
This will come only when we get into two-way conversations,
Absolutely.
right? So
Conversations.
this is becomes very crucial. Even though kids are playing only half an hour games with their parents, so
Correct.
this is very important because rest of the time they are dealing with the phone. Or parents can also take
Absolutely.
a phone, and the Ludo, which
Right. Correct.
can they which they can play. But the interesting part is that they should do something more experiential, I feel.
Which means they need to build activities which are more, I guess outdoor activities will be more, where
Yeah, only
badminton, something like
planting
that.
can be another thing. Or again, I believe in family who is engages in construction, and they form something, and kids can always see and then look at back. Okay, this is what we have made. This give them a different kind of self-esteem, and this brings ki, okay, we are together forming something. We are together in this. Yeah, and this is what I feel. And quality time doesn't mean that parents start judging or pointing out, "Ki, you are doing this, you have done that in that party, what's going on. But I always feel that using positive positive actions and positive words first, that you have done
Okay.
this nicely, and later on taking what they have done something wrong. So
Absolutely.
they don't feel very judgmental. Like they will start, like I've seen kids who are being constantly, parents who analyze them in front of everyone. So the
Correct.
rule protocol here at my place, my center, is nobody should talk about the child in front of the child because
Absolutely.
they are listening every word. आज इसने ये नहीं
Correct.
किया, आज इसने वो नहीं किया, ये बहुत ये कर रहा था, ये बहुत वो कर रहा था. And kids, they somehow they get to know they're talking about me. So what they do is they develop some behaviors.
Correct. Correct. See, I strongly believe that the child needs to be guided. Sometimes just like the child, the parents also need to be counseled,
Yeah,
because they need a frequently like a support system, just to know that, okay, like a monthly or a weekly, bi-weekly, so that they are knowing that this is what they need to do, because every month, every week, there's a new challenge that comes up, just
definitely.
like in the news channel. There's
Yeah,
something new comes
there
up.
is something
So in the
the
family
breaking
also
news going on.
breaking
Yeah.
news comes up. So the breaking news should not become very toxic enough or so difficult enough for the family to handle, or the parents to handle.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So what do you think parents should be ready to approach, like for a parent counseling, or for their kids development, more often than just doing Google and research and doing things on their own?
See, these are two different dimensions. Self-help books, fantastic. Go for it. That's the first stage. Once the first stage is over, and I guess that's a part of our life, like just like watching television, reading books. That's fine. But the second part is, which is like taking help from the professional.
Yeah,
Just like we want to invest in certain markets or something like that, we will consider a professional. Let's say there is a legal problem, we'll consult a lawyer. Similarly, when you're talking about parenting, it's not a skill that you're born with. It's a skill that needs to be developed and nurtured with the help of a professional who is very objective and who is very impartial,
yeah,
and who can give us new strategies based on the researchers, what he's or she is seeing in his or her practice.
yeah,
Because The parent is only seeing that particular child,
Definitely.
but the therapist or the psychologist is seeing different children, different families. And probably the vision or the wisdom will be much larger than those parents who might be older to the therapist or younger to the therapist, whatever
Right,
scenario.
right. Yeah, true. So, I really feel whoever is watching should definitely see, and starting intervention at the right time, or starting any kind of a parent training also at the right time is very crucial, because that's how we can learn and we can mold our kids for whenever
Correct.
it's required. We know that okay, this is how I'm going to do, and this is how my kid will develop the regulation part. Because mostly I see
Correct.
kids that are unable, at times impulse control is the issue, at times emotional regulation is the issue, at times self regulation is the issue, you know
Correct.
but a parent should know when and how to deal with this different stuff. Because
Absolutely.
because like my I have a mother, and she still take care of all. We get three kids,
Absolutely.
and she take care of all the three kids still now at this age also. So I think mother's job and parents job, it's never over. It's
Absolutely.
always
I believe
something
age
or the
is
other
just a
they
number.
have.
I believe age is just a number. Even if they're at the 80s or 90s, they
Yeah,
remain as a
they
parent.
still are our parents, and they still take, they still know that okay, this is what we have to do, that is what you have to do, and they always think about the kids. So yeah,
So
so
I guess the designation stays for a lifetime.
yeah, right, right. So okay, Navneet, thank you so much for this very fruitful discussion, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to
Right.
have some more discussions with you, and it's always a pleasure talking to you.
And I'm sure this
Definitely.
journey will give a lot of insights to the, especially the parents who are struggling, at this point of time, especially the COVID-19 situations, who are indoors and spending more times with their children. So
Yeah.
obviously, this becomes an opportunity if they get to understand and they apply. I think yes, whatever discussions that we made today, and I guess that will be a very insightful experience for the new adventures which are waiting to come. Like we discussed that it's a breaking news going to come every week, every month, so they are prepared for it with the wisdom what they could learn today.
Yeah, right, Navneet. That is right. So anyone who want to have, to whoever want to ask the questions can always leave a comment, and we'll be happy to answer. Navneet will be happy to answer.
I guess.
Yeah, Navneet. Okay. Thank you so
Sure.
much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.